Well, it's that time of last year again. If you know me in really any capacity, you know that I've probably tried to speak to you about a great number of modern films. It's my biggest hobby, it's the biggest time sink of anything I do, and as a result I'm now in the position where I have to collate an entire year's of writings into one video. With so many studios celebrating their centenary, it really was shocking to see the worst year on the record for so many of them. Every single blockbuster past them bombed horrifically this year. And that reflects on the year. I look over this list and I ask myself, what is a blockbuster anymore? Superheroes might actually finally be on their way out, but we've learned all the wrong lessons from this time in pop culture. Our biggest auteurs are still making big swings and talking about their own careers quite openly, in some cases even signing off. But big changes have been a-coming for a long time, both in front and behind the camera. Out of that 123, what stood out to me? Let's collate the good, the bad, the niche, and the painfully mainstream. I hope you like the sound of my voice, because this is the only way I know how to relate to people anymore. Walt Disney Studios, how are you doing? Bomb after bomb, controversy after controversy, even the outrage merchants are starting to lose interest. 100 years of Disney animation, and I celebrated by taking passes on every single thing they released. For the first time ever. I don't do that, I'm a massive animation fan. Pixar. What have they done to you? Skip, pass, walkouts.
Remember the swamp? Remember my song in the swamp when I was like, wham, chicka, wham, wham, chicka, wham.
No, come back. It'll be fine. It'll be...
Turns out all they really had to do to celebrate themselves was, celebrate themselves. Acknowledging every single one of those 100 years as an animation house. It works. Once Upon a Studio includes characters and nods to every single film they've ever released. Even the niche ones. Home on the Range representation in 2023, can you believe it? It's definitely a stark reminder that there used to be variety in how these things fucking looked. But consider me shocked that Disney still has the infrastructure for 2D animation. They know how to do this still. They just don't. The only financially viable part of the entire Disney company at the minute are the parks, because they essentially side as a goodwill museum. And yeah, I know that constantly renewing nostalgia, it's always going to be the Disney company's secret weapon. It works here. As an animation fan and someone who was once a child, yeah, I see beloved characters and the talented artists of yesteryear. There they all are. There it all is, looking more and more like a museum exhibit by the year. And on a similar note, Saw X. The Saw series is crazy. It took them 10 movies to work out that the main character of the franchise should probably be treated like the main character of the franchise. The dying John Kramer comes upon a bunch of private healthcare con artists, preying on the cancer-ridden and the desperate. The Jigsaw Killer isn't a fan. These films used to hold so much power over me. Terrified of them as a kid, still a little bit cagey around them now, depending on which part of the body is being horrifically massacred in this scene. The poster alone, that's a killer poster. I didn't want to go see it in cinemas because I have a massive fear of eyes, and things happening to eyes. Lo and behold, by the time I finally get round to it, I was bursting out laughing at the sheer silliness of what actually happens to this guy's eyes. This series has been so desperate for reinvention over the last few years, I've actually had soft spots for some of them. I just find it incredibly heartwarming that the miracle cure for the soap opera Saw series was just make a movie. Make an actual movie about actual characters. That's something you can't even say for the original Saw, the first 3. At times, Saw X is a meditative drama, and at others, the full camp is on display. Actually giving me somebody to root for a change, helps. All the better when it's your most beloved character. What can I say? I love serialized horror that uses its inherent campiness to its own advantage. At one point, a character does something inspiring with a mobile phone and a set of intestines. I can't spoil that for you. Rye Lane. It's a rom-com. It is just a rom-com. It's funny, it's well shot, it's vibrant, it feels lived in and real, and people talk like people I know. It's the best student film I've seen in a very, very long time. And that can be a compliment or a diss. I showed it to my parents because I thought it was the most likeable, harmless thing, and I was wrong. I was going back and forth on whether I'd actually talk about this one. It seems too easy to dunk on. Justice League Warworld. I really persevere with DC Animated. They got Scooby-Doo, they got Batman, sometimes they've got Scooby-Doo and Batman. They release about 5 films a year, and this one followed a pattern, kind of the final nail in the coffin. The people on these projects are begging for some variety. They are begging to be on other projects, you can just tell. I was excited for Warworld, plonking 3 different Justice League members in different genres and different time periods. This animation house loved doing that. Elseworlds, Batman Ninja, Gotham by Gaslight, these are some of their best.
Something isn't right.
I don't know what's going on.
I was bored by Warworld because Warworld was bored by itself. Just like the rest of sci-fi fantasy, they've got really fixated on multiverses because of the artistic freedom and variety that premise should offer. None of that to be found here. Reluctantly, the third act has to become a Justice League story again, and what do I have to say of them bog standard? I love the cheap scrappiness that they bring to these series. Sometimes Warner Bros. Really knocks it out of the park, but if WB Animated really are on their last legs, I think it shows. I'm aware that Spider-Verse 2 came out this year, but at some point we're gonna have to move on from just IP cultural remixing. Because when you're stuck with an IP and you're not necessarily the right people for it, it really does come across as just treading water. They've found their perfect house style that works under their budgets. I love the animation and they've assembled a great cast, but it's hard to believe there's anything more going for them than that. Some intent would not go amiss. But also, hey, if you wanted to see Wonder Woman be a cowboy for a bit, I guess it's got you covered. El Dorado, Everything the Nazis Hate, was probably the best documentary I watched last year. I've been waiting for this film or a film like this for a very long time. The El Dorado, a famous German club, detailing a short-lived queer safe space, a hub of 1930s gay and trans celebration, before and into World War II, before the Nazis burned every single historical record. There's some really good stuff in here. I did not know about the Rom scandal, Hitler's gay right-hand man, who frequented this club and its community a lot and paid the price for it. It's an emotive, evocative take on the material. It's a community whose history was attacked and scrubbed. But sadly, frankly, and tragically, there's a lack of recorded information. And that does result in a big hole in the middle of this documentary. It ends up being more a record of German ranks and the history of a venue rather than of a people, which leaves me feeling hollow and unfulfilled, but I guess that's rather the point. El Conde. El Conde is the pitch-black memoirs of an old, retired vampire who lived most of his life as a Venezuelan dictator. It's slow, it's dry. Much of the film are legal proceedings as the family try to split the inheritance. And then in the third act, a newcomer enters the film.
Call me a conservative, but this puerile intimacy shall not be allowed.
And her name is Margaret Thatcher. End of segment. It's not a comedy, and yet here she is. Instrumental, final act piece of the puzzle. Vampire Margaret Thatcher. Off she goes. I know writers who use subtlety, and they're fucking dead. I can't believe it with this madman. One year he makes me care about Top Gun. The next he's making me care about the Mission Impossible series. I don't know how he does it. I watched all of them this year just because of how great Dead Reckoning Part 1 was. Just a collection of really great set pieces and gorgeous, gorgeous people. Calling to all fans of women, you absolutely owe it to yourself to go see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is not a drill, it's wall-to-wall ladies. Sometimes it's hard to find Tom Cruise in the frame because of it. At this part of the video, I am compelled to say yowza, I am compelled to say awooga, I am compelled to say goddamn. Absolutely down bad for this movie, from its phenomenal editing, the killer trailer, stunning music, and great taste in women. Okay, that's enough, Sam. Till broke my heart. You learn about the civil rights story of Emmett Till in school, and it's horrifying. It's really desensitizing history. Now, I've seen an amateur production of this story. A student film of it was actually shot in my area as a boy. But I'm not surprised in the slightest that Hollywood has never tried touch this story. Chiefly because of the big question. Do you show the body? The answer is yes, and no matter how horrifying the prosthetic is, the film will not let you look away from it. It's not even the most painful part of the film. There's grief, there's guilt in it. And I've seen absolutely nobody talk about it. This is probably the biggest Oscar snub we're gonna see in many years. Danielle Deadwyler carries an entire film on her back. A traumatized mother trying to defend her massacred son from the campaign of defamation that followed what should have been his murder trial. Really arduous, unforgiving job, but this actress rises to it. Also, hey, Toes and Cole, getting that money. If I could send any film back in time to my younger self, it'd be this one. Whew. The first slam dunk. It's when I watch a really good sports movie, I realise, oh, hang on, I do like sports.
1, 2, 3, win!
The first slam dunk is a piece of highly crafted sports art. The camera is always in the right place. Every single shot is so dynamic and perfectly constructed. It's a goddamn adrenaline roller coaster. These lovely, idiot high school kids made me laugh harder than I think any other film did this year. Yeah. I have no familiarity with the series. Good thing, really. You don't need it. I truly had not known the triumphs and defeats, the epic highs and lows of high school basketball. Ferrari is a Dow movie, you know. You gotta take your da to the Dow movie. So many biopics this year. At one point, my end of year list was just looking like Napoleon versus Rustin versus Oppenheimer versus Ferrari versus Wonka. These brave, revolutionary stories about the morally grey men who changed the world. Super functional. Streamlined. The next biopic I see has to be radically different, though. The great haunted men of history, it's wearing thin. Look, there's universal truths, and then there's just the same film being presented over and over.
Enzo Ferrari will go down in history as the greatest car manufacturer of all time.
But Penelope Cruz and Adam Driver, they're doing some of their best work here. It's another sports film, but deep in Ferrari, this film about a great big historical bastard is a walking of the moral grey. It's about Enzo's justifying to himself. And I found something really interesting in that. Before the final race begins, the rival team tells their drivers, hold back, let the Ferraris self-destruct. Those drivers they'll wipe themselves out. And the film feels that desperate. You as a viewer feel that intense and pushed to accept these mental working conditions as normal. But this film is very quietly and very cleverly condemning the film's desperate, widow-making main subject. And it does it in that line. You want to drive my cars? You have to be ready to die for my cars. Because you see the competition? They're willing to die behind the wheel too. Turns out that's an absolute lie. An interesting paranoid man. Clever film, brutal film, but I need something new now. Like, how to have sex. So imagine the In-Betweeners movie, but evil. This film is that, but on the girls' side of things. So tied with Till, this is the best performance of the year, no question about it. 3 British teenage girls go on a rites of passage holiday, their first holiday, to party on the Greek islands, where there is danger, trauma, and coming of age waiting for them. There's whole expressions that I recognise from real life, but I've never seen put to screen before. I know how that sounds. But me and McKenna Bruce, she's the new person to watch. New talent is flooding out of this country, and if I could award her the Oscar, I would. It's staggering to think that this baby was pregnant shooting this. She convincingly plays a 15-year-old, 16-year-old. It's vague, but get this, she's my age. Everything's there, and tears were had in the cinema by, anyone with any kind of proximity to this, which, by the way, is everyone. But it's films like this that just remind you of the sheer power of acting. What grip one person's performance has over an entire piece of art. Wow. Which brings me to The Whale. Wow, maybe this is the year of just really great performances. Brendan Fraser's back, and the world is better for it. I think that only the darkest stories can communicate, the true extent of human kindness. You need that juxtaposition to really drive that point home. And I think at its heart, that's what The Whale is about. That poor, poor diseased heart. This film has the craziest final 5 seconds in film history. It feels even a slightly lesser film. The audience would have erupted in laughter. But it's the correct ending. It's the perfect ending for this. And because of it, I sought out a ton of Aronofsky after. It's a theme of his work. What do good people add to our world? And can God find the breaking point of the good man?
Are you actually trying to parent me right now?
Who would want me to be a part of their life?
I know some people really hated it, and that's going to happen quite a lot in this list. But I thought it was just genuinely profound. Priscilla.
You like Elvis Presley?
Oh, my nan's not going to be happy with this one. The film I described to strangers the most at parties this year. I saw it in the London Film Festival. I only got a couple tickets and this thing was packed. I'm a big Sofia Coppola fan, and she's pulling no punches or surprises with this one either. Priscilla Presley. Groomed into a doll by the world's most famous, adored abuser. What will it take to dull a childhood first love? Priscilla's about a lot, with a really uncomplicated subject. It's really cold and detached, everything is just shot as is. I can't remember if this movie has a score. I think ultimately it's a great example of the fact that you can't buy love and you can't mould it either. It's so soulless and claustrophobic. There's a great word for it. This massive manor house, and it's still so claustrophobic. There's points in this film where I had to remind myself that it's Elvis. That's no bash against Jacob Elordi. It's just such a stark statement they're making with him. It's going to be very controversial, but good, frankly. Still, 2 Elvis films in recent years, and still no big exploration of his mother. It's like, why even tell the story if you're going to exclude the most important part of it? EO! That little donkey got murked, huh? Right, okay, we talked about Disney and we're going to talk about the Marvel situation. People are rooting for Marvel to finally die. And I don't want that. I think the films they released this year were all passable. Light, fun, sci-fi. I'm quite fond of light, fun sci-fi. There is precedent for me liking the Marvels. And Quantumania. The Marvels is plot light, dynamic heavy. It's got questionable needle drops, but 3 really likeable, attractive leads.
Anytime you need company, I will be there. I will drop everything. I will drop high school. Don't do that.
Everyone has really fun stuff to work through on a character level, and a lot to benefit from the crossover. Even if the premise's prerequisite reading was a little bit of a big ask this time. Even I didn't finish Miss Marvel. But I'm a massive fan of Kamala Khan, and I'm happy these 3 characters got to meet and share a fun space adventure. Is that not enough? I think it knows its audience really well. It completely succeeds in targeting a more female base. But why do I care about that, you know? I just saw a fun movie with some cool character beats or some characters that I'm so-so on. Why can they never make Brie Larson fly convincingly, though? The effects on this are rough.
Surprised to see me?
No, sorry, I wasn't talking about you. 2023 gave me this image. And you know what? It didn't just give me this image. It gave me this image. Film history is being made. It gave me my favourite joke in the MCU.
And at least I died. An Avenger.
You did.
Yeah, no, you're in. A lot has happened today.
Quantumania was just a Rick and Morty episode, and lo and behold, it was a Rick and Morty writer. Shame that Jonathan Majors is a monster, but I'm still rooting for these films, even if everyone else is rooting for its demise. Asteroid City. Ooh, interesting. People are also starting to sour on Wes Anderson, but this was the best year for his style yet. For real, his craft has reached a theatrical artifice peak. We could be looking at Wes Anderson's magnum opus and there'd be no way to know. His style can be a bit dominating, I get that. But in Asteroid City, I thought he was putting himself up on screen for once. No matter how nebulously, he's there. It's frank, it's human, which is something I'd never say about his work, and it's honest. Big up to this dude. Love this dude. Gets in the movie, gets out. Just like a lot of people in our cinema screen did. Does the style override the emotions? I'm unsure. There's beautiful ruminations on art, sleep, and grief. A collection of A-list Wes Anderson types literally trapped on a staged facade of Americana.
I still don't understand the play.
What?
Where are you going?
Are we on stage? Are we in character? Asteroid City is also incredibly meta, finding a new way to break the fourth wall for a new reason. In the cynical overuse of it in the 2020s, that's kind of impressive. And even if the rambling back and forth, even if his dialogue does nothing for you, every frame is filled with 3 actors that you love. The most adorable, beloved actors in Hollywood. Just wait 10 seconds for the next shot. The next painting. You'll have another 5 actors from that thing. Many people think of him as impersonal, but I think this could be one of his best ever. It's really cryptic, and I want to return to it. I feel largely the same about Boy the Heron. Boy the Heron had a task of one-upping The Wind Rises. So it already had a tough start, you know? It seems that Miyazaki might be departing on a surreal grief piece. Like, it's such a transient movie. I don't even have a good grip on it at time of writing. And I don't know if rewatches will help. I think they're visuals to spend time in, but it's the worst paced of his movies ever. Boy the Heron ends abruptly and it starts late. The main character spends the first half hour just trying to shoo away the call to action. The little goblin from Goblin Land says, "Come for adventure," and he tries to kill it with a bow. Relatable. It's got real, kill E.T. with hammers energy.
You and I aren't friends or allies, kid.
It's always dazzling. It always looks brilliant and styling on ya, making every other animation studio just look bad. I think that's kind of Miyazaki's goal. He always seems to come out of retirement when there's competition to be had. I just think he's more interested in textures and walk cycles this time. And that's not bad. It's got a meditative focus on the art itself. That's cool. Joy for its own medium. Who cares if the film is a lesser Spirited Away? I do think that Spirited Away is its closest comparison. Just more scattershot and muted. I know my friends didn't make much of it. 2 hours of sleepy dream logic. What I will say is that the English dub is strange. Robert Pattinson coming in and giving an actually weird, loud performance makes you realise how tranquillised everybody else is on these things. What's the point of getting all these A-listers, all these prestige names, if they're just gonna sound sleepy and say every word they have of dialogue like this? Credit to Pattinson for actually doing some, acting. Is Boy the Heron just empty symbolism? It could be. We'd all be transfixed anyway. Still time is Click, the movie Click with Adam Sandler, if it were, say, an actual production. Not a great one, mind you, but, you know, Adam Sandler's not there. Instead, we have the world's most French protagonist, the French modern man. Every single film that comes out of this country is obsessed with gender roles. and has the same main character. In this, our main guy keeps jumping a year of his life. If he falls asleep, a year of his life will pass in his new surroundings. So, yeah, it follows basically all the beats you'd expect. This dude, he works too hard, and he doesn't make time for his family and his many, many mistresses. The classic. Trite. The film is trite, yeah, but it's hard not to relate to a dude being constantly jump-scared by his own inevitable mistakes every morning. Let's go to the next one. Oh, I'm the Wonka, baby. Fucking hell. Roald Dahl had a really good year for films. Wes Anderson was on it. I really loved Poison with Benedict Cumberbatch and Sir Ben Kingsley. It's short but makes its point with a real punch and gets out of there. Wonka was, fucking miserable. I'm a big Wonka head, okay, don't get me wrong. I got the Funko Pop. I have the weird dreams about Gene Wilder. It's a really great story. In a good world, we would have Wes Anderson making the Glass Elevator movie. Now that would be crazy. But we live in this world, so we get the Wonka prequel origin story.
Noodle, noodle, apple strudel. Some people don't and some people doodle.
Take away the Roald Dahl grimness or the Gene Wilder ambiguity and you're left with a slightly twee guy in an infinitely tweer world. Look, I get why movies like this exist. Wonka does serve a purpose as Christmas panto cheese. There was actually even potential in the premise. One kid taking on the chocolate cartels. That sounds fun. Dumb. To me, Wonka should have been a candy-coated Scarface. But instead we end up with a class warrior Wonka as a defender for the oppressed, which I think is pathetic. An industry record for awkward miscasting on a level we've never seen before. Apparently, Leonardo DiCaprio once told Chalamet, don't do drugs and don't do comic book movies. Now's his advice to him. But this is okay? It turns out that a Paddington movie really needs Paddington in it. And now I'm doubtful that we should give this guy anything other than Paddington movies. But that might be my own biases at play. 2023 was a huge year for anime, less so for anime movies. Frankly, there just weren't any. We're still waiting for these two, and what we did get was Black Clover, Revenge of the Wizard Lord. It looks great, villain designs are beautiful. I just need my little shonen fix, and to look at it, there's nothing amiss. But all I could think about as these winged angel men fought in the sky was how meritocratic shonen is. Honestly, I got to the point where I wanted the Final Fantasy bad guy to replace the little scream boy as the protagonist. I think I agreed with the bad guy more. I'm all for that anime naivety, but they're usually a bit more inspiring and revolutionary at heart than this trash. All that any of the main cast of Black Clover seem to care about going by this is the status quo. Don't even try invoke class commentary if your final stance on the project is less complicated than Silver Age comics. It's a film where the good guys are the good guys and the queer-coded bad guys are the bad, but it won't stop them from having cliched discussions like, we're not so different, you and I. Join me and we can change this system forever. You have nothing behind it, shut up. This is getting kind of negative. Let's talk about Talk to Me. Yeah, I know, I just said. A bunch of Australian kids at a house party discover a cursed relic that allows spirits of the dead to possess their classmates. What do modern day kids do with it? They make it go viral. So believable. This film is so slick, it's so relentless. My partner loves horror, but this seems like the first film to actually make her squeamish in so long. And I think it largely does that through the editing. So well edited, the film doesn't even need jump scare sound effects, because woof, it's there, it's just in your face, and that's your problem to deal with now. The film kind of eggs you on to engage with it, in the same way a peer pressuring kid would. This film has a script and twists that are just mean-spirited. realizing near the end, spoiler, that you might have had an unreliable narrator the entire time. Cinema satisfaction right there. I could never make anything half this good. That's fine, because neither could most other living filmmakers. More from these guys, please. Viva la France, Joaquin Phoenix is typecast playing weird little greeby goblins. And that's no different for his role in Napoleon. Ridley Scott was so funny on the press tour for this, basically saying, yeah, it's historically inaccurate, fuck you! I'm gonna live forever, was an actual quote he said at one point. And making films like this, I think he just might. Production design, CGI, costuming, please give it all of those Oscars right away. Napoleon is a wholly fantasy account of history. This is fine. Some people would even call that a movie. But I think not knowing the history really helps with my appreciation of this, because my god, what a film. It's like watching Gladiator for the first time. The film is on such an interesting scale. And Joaquin Phoenix is doing his best work as a horny little devil. Napoleon was a weird little fuck going from this. I think it's a really good inversion on, again, great man theory biopics. Every single time we see Napoleon have a cool badass strategist moment, it's like a foil, it's following a scene where we just saw him as the most pathetic person to be put to film. If I was Napoleon Bonaparte, watching this in the year of our Lord 2023, I would exile myself. It was so sick. I hope there's more epics next year. I think that dumb, fun films geared for grown-ups are about to make a big resurgence. One of my favourite fictional characters of the year was Napoleon Bonaparte. People ragged on this movie, but if Joaquin Phoenix got an Oscar, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. He does such a stereotypical but convincing job that I think he belongs in a jail cell for this performance. Oscar ceremony, acceptance speech, direct escort to local police station. Hunger Games prequel movie. A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was a delightful surprise. I'm not into these movies, not really. But this was like sitting down and watching the goddamn Godfather. It's massive. All of these films this year feel massive and adult. Suzanne Collins expertly frames a story in the villain's camp. This is essentially the Marley arc for Hunger Games, which I didn't realise I was such a sucker for. Our bougie main character has to make interesting decision after decision that can impact his entire society. And the way that the core romance builds, it kind of makes Hunger Games' point better than Hunger Games did in the first place. This was phenomenal, and I don't know why nobody spoke about it. Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Amongst Thieves. The little blockbuster that could. Charming main characters, great action, a nice split between practical and digital effects. We've got actual stars behaving like stars in a non-intimidating plot that's just all-round likeable. Yeah, it does its job great. I'm playing Dungeons & Dragons now. Me, one of the cool kids. Chris Pine told me it was okay now. This film just has a good vibe. It's got a really good tone, and it swerves a lot of the cliches you would expect of Midsummer Generica, you know what I mean? This film's trump card, though, is earnesty. There's a part where Chris Pine pulls out a lute, and he plays a little merry song for his travelling companion.
Not fortune found, nor fate divine.
And immediately I roll my eyes. I've been conditioned by the last 15 years of self-effacing, cliche-ridden blockbuster dialogue. No, Gina Rodriguez doesn't make a joke at his expense. She smiles, like pats him on the back, and they go off to their merry adventure because her friend cheered her up with a song. The best scene of the film, and exactly what movies have been missing for the longest time. Everyone thinks they're just too good for movies now, huh? Even movie writers. 2023 was a tough year for my friends this time. I was there for a lot of people. Makes change? Usually it's the other way around. The Eight Mountains is about male companionship. Following the death of his father, a young man returns to the Italian Alps to reunite with a childhood friend, one that has been in communication with his late parents, and has been tasked with building him a house. The two of them begrudgingly form a brotherly relationship. From there, it's a series of vignettes, yeah? About the two men at different stages of their life, returning to this haven they've built on a mountain together. They're living the dream, and still they let in the dark thoughts. If you go on Letterboxd, you'll find any amount of Short, quippy reviews about it being the straight version of Brokeback Mountain, but fuck you, they get their own version too. It's such an intelligent movie. It's an emotionally intelligent movie that earns being called an epic. It feels bigger in scale than Oppenheimer did. I'm thinking about friendships that are built to last. I'm thinking about parenting from beyond the grave. It explores themes and gets in your head with the poetry that only a book would usually have, but it's got these gorgeous vistas and visuals that basically hypnotize you for near on 3 hours. You know that feeling of dread you get when you're running out of time hanging out with a friend you haven't seen in ages and there's still so much to catch up on? It's bittersweet, but you'll have to hope you pick up where you left off next time. I was getting that intimate feeling every other scene in this film. A movie did that to me. Responsibility, loneliness, hard work, regrets, flannel shirts. Is there nothing else in the male experience that is not depicted beautifully in this film? I think it's a masterpiece at its own pace. I want what they have. I want what they have for me. Under the Boardwalk. It's a jukebox musical with a bunch of hermit crabs living under the Jersey Shore pier. It's got big names, it's well animated, the songs are really fun and vibrant.
Gotta go! Not so tough without your boys around, are ya?
Oh yeah, that's why you haven't heard of this movie.
Oh, I can see your bum!
They buried that thing deep.
Keep change, mate. And they said chivalry was dead. What? But that's when Mr. Spritzer swooped in and tried to pinch her and chased her down the shoreline with his friends.
Man, that's just unfortunate. Then we've got Landscape with Invisible Hand. A title that sounds lol random until you actually learn what the movie's about. So there's these guys, and they have won. They have invaded humanity and infiltrated our culture and our education, our legal system, and destroyed the job market and replaced it with their own. Everything we do now exists for the purpose of these guys. They are repulsive, they are pathetic, they are small, but now they call the shots. Humanity with a change in management. This is some obviously quite depressing and humiliating sci-fi. It's about class, yeah, but I think it's mostly about the humiliation, how painful it is to fall in line, to be subjugated, and in that, the power that revolutionary arts may or may not hold.
And so,
My wife.
hey, the paddle's down. Honey, I'm not done yet.
Yeah, it's probably more of a black story, it's certainly an American story, but there are so many systems in place to keep you in your place. And this film makes it feel fresh, it makes it feel new, just how angry and uncomfortable occupation makes you feel. If more people saw this, if this was TikTok's golden movie this year instead of Saltburn, I think it would have been a more revolutionary year, yeah. Creed 3 is such a good boxing movie that it doesn't even play the Rocky music. It doesn't need it. Listen, I'm a guy. I'm not above going onto YouTube and typing in every single time the theme music plays in the finale of a Rocky fight. That music cue is killer and they know it, but this film, directed by Michael B. Jordan, yeah, is completely his own thing. We've cut all ties with the past, and we are so much better for it.
Try spending half your life in the cell watching somebody else live your life.
Oh hey, look who it is again. Given the golden ticket that comes around maybe twice every generation to all of Hollywood in any role you could possibly want. He's so talented and he's so great in this movie. And he threw it away with every pair of eyes in the world looking at him. What a monster, but also, what an idiot.
You've been down this whole time? Just got out last week. Well, congratulations on that. Thank you.
Creed 3 starts in 2007, and right away I spot a Naruto poster on the wall, a Naruto Shippuden poster no less. I would go on to see that this entire movie is head to toe covered in anime influences. The next generation has arrived, and Michael B. Jordan steps up to the goddamn plate. Back in the day, I thought Creed felt new. I thought Creed 1 felt like a new movie, but it's not, is it? Not in the slightest. Creed 2 literally has him deal with some C-list Rocky villains, tying up the continuity, taking on villains that aren't his. And then with Creed 3 we have a success story, A fall from grace story, and two distant brothers fighting to the death. The action is so visceral. I know it's crazy how much of his own boxing choreography he does, how much of the action is actually Michael B. Jordan. There's just something about it this time that makes watching it feel like life or death. It's so cool, so sharp, so youthful. When so many beloved franchises are stuck in the hands, the claws of the old guard, it feels like legacy. It feels good to see an actually new take on some old material. Sylvester Stallone has long earned his retirement. This is what the cultural handover looks like, and it's so exciting. The Old Oak, on the other hand, hits different. Now, I went all of these years avoiding the films of Ken Loach, just knowing that they'd be so close to home that they would hurt me. And don't get it twisted, The Old Oak definitely hurt me. But something really special happens here. Tensions rise in an old, derelict British mining town when Syrian refugees are placed in empty houses within their community. Very quickly, the film delineates who means well and who wants an ethno-state.
I mean, I'm no racist, but...
And if the whole film were uncomfortable encounters like that and nothing more, then yes, it would be the exact kind of misery porn I always wanted to avoid from the man. But it ends up taking it so much further in this rich character study. Instead, it becomes a story about speaking up. Is saying nothing the same as doing nothing? There's displacement and community, and I think a lot of my favourite films really just give me things that I don't have in my own life. So, a rich sense of community will really strike a chord with me, if done well.
You make me feel quite ashamed after what you've been through to do this for me.
There's no shame in love, Mr. Valentine. We understand loss. Please, take a seat.
Thank you.
Unflinching, unapologetic, all of these words that I'm sure Ken Loach is sick of hearing. This is the best film of the year where the main antagonist was bad, faulty plumbing. Some of the best performances of the year that can easily fly under the radar because they're not very dynamic. A big, sweeping call for compassion and solidarity, and that goes much beyond class. Although, hey, that's one of the things that can unite us as well. When you boil a community down to just something as simple as, how do you treat one another? How nice are you to your neighbours? You can easily see who actually cares about protecting their own. And I'll tell you what, it's not those racist skits down the pub. Scabs! The lot of them. I have bought his entire filmography, so I'm setting that one right. Killers of the Flower Moon, I was seated. I'm not a hater. I love Hugo, Taxi Driver, King of Comedy, Shutter Island. He's a genius. But finishing Scorsese's newest film, sometimes you gotta defeat a movie rather than watching it. Every character is exactly who they appear to be from their first lines, and it's a very long runtime to not relate to any of the film's characters. There's some self-reflection going on in there, especially at the very end, as filmmakers seem to be doing this year, but it's not a lesson I ever needed to learn. You see, adult movies, they ask the big questions like, is this man bad? And at what point does crime stop being fun and cool? That's my parody of Old Man Marty, but in this film he does have answers to both those questions. They just don't interest me much. Clearly, the evil mob men story that Scorsese is known for just doesn't really suit this project. I can tell you exactly one trait about each of the Osage characters, and they're not very sympathetic traits. We're told that the Native Americans don't speak much, but they do. God, they really do. It's more so that they don't get any substantial screen time in their own story. All of the facts are out in the open. Functionally, it's just waiting for everything to unfold and for the truth to come out. Everyone's complicit or powerless, and that's really interesting in the first third of the movie, where you have Molly as an audience surrogate who sees straight through these flirtatious white boys. But then she spends the rest of the movie in bed, never questioning anything after that point, and I have to shrug kinda clock watching all over this thing. Ernest is just the Scorsese genre protagonist I don't care for. Just like all of his other schlubby crime boys, he doesn't have any pathos. It's a rise and fall story, and when the fall comes for these characters, I just shrug and I want to say, well, what did you expect? 3 hours is a long time to wait for unlikable characters to die. Solidly not for me. Across the Spider-Verse was very, very, very much for me. Sorry, Marty, the superheroes have just got it really good this time. Superhero films are not art, except this one, I liked this one. Behind the scenes, sounds like a fucking nightmare, but in front of the screen, every single frame has so much love, craft, and detail poured into it that you know what I'm gonna say already. I think through animation, this is the most artistry you can see per second in film. So many ideas. State-of-the-art technology, artist-led despite it all, in a giant production crunch. I think it's crazy. Multiple different versions of this film exist, and still everyone seems to be on the same page about it. I'm really envious of how much fun the Spider-Verse creators are having over there at Sony Animation. I am not envious of their legal team that has to navigate this unforgiving IP bash. Suitably, it's a movie about breaking the rules. On first viewing, I'm blown away by how metatextual it is. Canon is a dirty word, and proven to be a false narrative. Second viewing, I'm paying more attention to how Spider-Man treats its own relationship with the police. Miguel is running a utilitarian Spider-Man SWAT team for the greater good, and so from the film's first moments to its literal final amazing cliffhanger, it's a young black lead in a story about authority. I mean, how much more mature and responsible can you get in a superhero tale? It's absolutely mad they ditched the fantastic sidecast of the previous film, only to keep one-upping themselves pretty much every other scene with a new character. Hate the AM, hate the PM, hate labels. I'm not a role model, I was briefly a runway model. That played so well in a London theatre. Some brilliant stuff is snuck in here, but let's not forget the core of the story, which is, I think, there's a lot of Black Lives Matter reaction art in there.
I'm not asking. Miguel, just give him the center.
Great look.
We let him leave, he'll only do more damage.
Honest anti-capitalist art, but done with studio IPs and money. It's really just boggling.
I said not to call me that!
It's hilarious and it's moody, it's stylish and it's sublimated. We spent so much time in that first act, at a real slow pace, and I didn't mind one bit. I would have lived in that film. It's interesting to write a story about the police and the kind of person who should and shouldn't be in the police.
Oh, this is why nobody likes us, man.
Us? Comedy, character work, action, just the visual presentation. It's crazy how much they one-upped themselves from the previous film. And I think they'll do it again. Please don't make me wait 5 years for the finale. The Fabelmans! So here's the deal, Stephen. You make us 3 Ready Player Ones, we'll let you make your Fabelmans. We'll let you make as many Fabelmans as you like. Really nostalgic, really raw. Steven Spielberg is such a talented filmmaker, he can make his childhood feel synonymous with your own. Now yes, was Mr. Spielberg a young man called Sammy, obsessed with cameras and wanting to make movies with his friends? Possible. But this film isn't remotely mine. It's an autobiography that he released with his tongue in his cheek, writing his younger self and saying all the things he probably wanted to say at the time. And all that perspective and experience, it's printed onto the film. I want to rewatch this one now, just talking about it. I get to like Steven Spielberg again. Do you know how much of a big deal that is for me? When he actually seems to care about a project, and it has a charismatic main lead, then yeah, Spielberg makes movies just as good as he's ever made them. It's the movie everybody always wanted him to make, and he doesn't hold back from the uncomfortable parts, he doesn't shy away from the mummy issues. In fact, they are the film.
Your father was a computer scientist, your mother was a musician. When the spaceship lands, how do they communicate?
That's a very good question. I like that. You've answered the question. And you see, I'd love to say, you know, I intended that and I realized that was my mother and father, but not until this moment.
Yeah, the man's getting on a bit, but he's made the movie he's always been destined to make. It's really, really good. Got snubbed to hell and back. And it's funny. There was a big conversation about this. Everyone being like, oh, was Steven Spielberg always funny? The answer was yes, but there's a fourth wall break in this that just warms my little cockles, alright? That just warms my socks.
But you tell anybody about me getting, upset. That would be a mistake. Our secret. Okay?
Definitely.
Unless I make a movie about it. Which I'm never, ever gonna do.
Now my new favourite Spielbergs are Jurassic Park, Catch Me If You Can, Fabelmans. And when you look at that filmography, that's a real feat. How does a man nearing the probably end of their career make something this youthful, make something this alive? Smoking causes coughing. So there's a Super Sentai Power Rangers group who murder monsters in the deserts, but their teamwork is lacking. So their Zordon, who looks like this, sends them all to a company retreat, a company team building exercise. And this premise is dropped very, very quickly in maybe the first 15 minutes. From there, it just becomes very disconnected short stories. At one point, a magic talking fish arrives. He's on the hob, they're about to grill him, until he says, "Stop, Rangers, I have a story to tell you."
Moi aussi, j'ai une histoire horrible à vous raconter. C'est quoi ce bordel qui parle?
20 minutes later of the most fucked horror short you've seen in your life, and the fish's story ends abruptly. The film just cuts off because the fish has been cooked. Sure, on to the next thing. S-Class shitposting. I want more. It feels like a little one-night-only secret that only I know about, and now you do too. Please watch Smoking Causes Coughing. It's fucking rank. And so not what you think it is.
Super Mario Bros. I felt uncomfortable in the cinema.
Like, what am I doing here? Surrounded by two very distinct demographics, young kids and people in my age group and, let's say, weight bracket. And let me tell you, they loved the references. Fuck me, what a disaster. I felt so embarrassed, I felt so out of place. What's the point even criticizing it, really? I might have the ADHD required to follow it, but I'm not a kid. And even despite being an adult, I didn't love what they did with the source material. Or the copious 1980s music drops that seem to be everywhere, because why else would Illumination make any single creative decision? Remember how a massive part of the plot is getting the Donkey Kong army? Yeah, the Donkey Kong army. And getting them back to the Mushroom Kingdom to fight a big war? That takes up a lot of runtime. I would say that's the main quest. So I really loved it when almost immediately they were removed from the movie. And that entire tangent accomplished nothing. Do better. Be better. Mamma mia, how can you have a pizziola without the sauce? Blue Jean. Sad, gay, British film. It's what we're best at, and there's no point hiding away from it. Blue Jean follows a gym teacher in the middle of the AIDS crisis. Just beneath the surface, there's a very palpable sense of persecution. And to be a lesbian woman working around young girls who are developing their own sexuality in this mess of an era of a country. Really intimate, really nice, made me feel very old, and communicates self-discovery and paranoia in a decade I wasn't alive to experience it in. It echoes down the years, mostly through the art. Sometimes you see a poster, you hear the premise, and you go, yeah, of course that film's gonna be fantastic. And then it is, and, you know, no one makes a big deal of it because they all assumed it was gonna be fantastic anyway. Tell you what wasn't fucking fantastic. Fool's Paradise was the worst movie of 2023.
This is hard. I mean, because I want the movie to be big, right? You know? And like a box office smash, and we want to put like a lot of meat in the seats, you know?
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking, dude? You know what I'm thinking? Something that's happening in Hollywood that's like pretty cool. They take an underrated actor, right, whose career's in a slump, and then they make him a star again.
Oh, that is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Everyone has a little Charlie Day sitting inside their head, telling them what to do, screaming. Is that just me? Well, the joke this time is that Charlie Day, with his distinctive voice and likeable stage presence, doesn't talk. Charlie Day suffers an injury, is unable to talk, and stumbles his way through the Hollywood machine as a new kind of silent actor. Cool. This was a passion project by Charlie Day when his other Always Sunny cast members are doing really well for themselves in proper movies.
I'm from Waterloo, where the vampires hang out!
Charlie Day laboured and presented this. Just what a shame he forgot to put all the fucking jokes in.
I
can get you some if you need it, but we can't have that in the papers. No, I've been following you all night. I was parked outside your house, waiting to take you to set tomorrow, but enough is enough, buddy. Gosh, you gotta be on set in 2 hours. You're gonna be exhausted. I mean, I like a good walk as much as anybody.
There's not a punchline. The joke is that the film is happening at all. He walks into a situation, everyone's really loud and all over him. It's angry about Hollywood for reasons that honestly you can't really discern. It's laughing at the press, it's laughing at agents. It all feels like a very big in-joke. Everyone involved must have been so convinced that this core premise was so inherently hilarious that they didn't actually have to write anything. They would just sort of wing it on the day. And maybe that works on Always Sunny, but this, it's nothing. Sludge. Flopped delivery to flopped delivery. Half joke to half joke. Not a punchline in sight. I too have daydreams about being a Buster Keaton type fellow, but if every single character is a shallow motor mouth, then I don't know, put in some slapstick, a fucking pie. Guardians 3. It's hard to know what to say about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because it's so obviously great. Extremely funny, crystal clear, transparently emotional. It uses its comedy and its close bonds that it's created just to juxtapose some of the really nasty, gnarly stuff this film gets into. The villain literally has to resort to animal violence, just in case you didn't realise how evil he was. But it works, and Rocket Raccoon has always had that great backstory just sitting there. I experienced it back in the Telltale stuff, and I was worried, oh, this film might be a bit too familiar for me. No, not at all. James Gunn makes cinema. He's always been right for audience-pleasing, miracle movie making. Just like Scooby-Doo 2. We never got a Scooby-Doo 3, and that was fucked. So with this, maybe we can finally put some stuff to bed.
But one thing even Mutak Soviets never do is call me bad dog.
God, you just let it go.
I'm still quoting this movie.
There is no God! That's why I stepped in!
I think it's funnier than Guardians 1 and Guardians 2, despite a major theme being animal torture. There's probably one fake-out death too many, but every single member of this family gets the perfect ending you'd want them to have. Rich character moments all over this thing, and they're acting their hearts out. I think if the other films have anything over it, Guardians 3 probably has a weaker soundtrack, a weaker original score. Two-Time Galaxy Savers is a killer track, and it appears for about 3 seconds this time. Much like James Gunn, that little raccoon means so much to me, and I'm thrilled that I let him into my heart so that he could break it, and then subsequently heal it. That ending is everything. Yes, I do ship these two, but I ship their bromance even more. Just like everybody else in the theatre, I was bawling when Rocket said, "My hands don't scan."
My hands don't scan.
I cry every time. Now for two films that share a lot in common, because I want to talk more about a trend in movies this year rather than specific ones themselves. This is Dream Scenario, starring Nicolas Cage.
Have you been dreaming about me?
Have I been dreaming about you?
Yeah.
And Beau is Afraid, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Both of these films left me so empty, a sad shell of a man. After 2 hours of torturing, humiliating, and emasculating its lead character, the comedy part of the horror comedy, I just sort of sit here thinking, yeah, that was well made. But what did I get from that? Many movies at the moment seem to be using the comedy part of the genre to exhibit their bare-faced humiliation kinks. Dream Scenario isn't about anything much more than that. I'm not an idiot, I get it. It's a film about fame. The titular Dream Scenario is being famous and adored and everybody knows you, and then actually showing you the true horror of that situation. It's not a perspective I give much time to, it's not a perspective I care much about, but it's there, I get it. There has to be a more balanced way of getting to that moral than just punishing and punishing and punishing the saddest character to ever exist. And both of these films are guilty of that. They take great pleasure in it. But one of them I think has more going on upstairs. Beau's Afraid. In the second act, we enter a whole other movie within the movie. And by the time you come out of it, and the main character has aged and lived a whole life, you forgot what movie you were in originally. and then it all comes flying back that you are in a paranoiac hellscape, laughing at you, mocking you. It's admittedly quite funny to see the exaggerated perspective of any given paranoid man. But let's just say I was already getting the 4DX experience on that one, Asta.
Sorry. I know I've been a bad son. Please.
You selfish little boy!
Bastard, evil, shit, fucker, all of these words and more. Beau Was Afraid was fantastic and had a cock monster in it. Everyone is out to get you. I just don't know what media about that is really out to achieve. I know that cinema fans are perverts. I know we're freaks, but I don't think we are all sadists.
Bonjour, Monsieur Wick, and welcome to La Resistance.
Back at it with the Jones. Say what you like about choreography and cinematography at the top of their game. Perfected after 4 movies of nothing but John Wick is still the only mythological fucker to fall down that many stairs. The cinema experience of the year was John Wick falling down that Paris staircase. We were crying. Just when you think he's done. Oh, more. It keeps going on like a goddamn Family Guy skit. Beautiful filmmaking. Everybody involved. They deserve more than Oscars. They deserve statues. Scream 6, Scream 6. What doesn't work here? No, really, because this is probably the most crushing disappointment I've experienced in recent memory. Scream 5, you remember how much I was raving about that, right? I made it my personality for a year. The sequel comes out, it expands on Melissa Barrera's lingering traumas and surfacing psycho defense mechanisms. Yeah, sign me up. But what we get, it doesn't scratch that itch. I don't think a Scream movie has had this little to say since the 3rd one. I suspected the identities of every killer involved from their first lines, including one actor who just can't seem to pull off the camp villainy that comes with wearing the mask. That's very strange. Actors and non-actors alike, me, would kill for those shoes you stand in. Fun fact, I bought myself a Scream costume last year. An ex-film student with resentment towards the Scream series. With a mask. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably fine. At the most charitable I can be, there is a bit of social commentary, I guess. It takes a stab at the believe women angle, which was quite relevant at the time, invoking social media spectacles like the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial case, and how normal the internet was about that. Believe women and protect survivors. It's a good moral, it's a good cause, but it ain't communicated well. Hearing how they tackle cancel culture in a passing line is painful. And considering what they did to their star over their own personal values, I'm over it. I'm done caring. This time last year, I was the biggest Scream fan on the planet. Now, let it die. When the corny misdirects, when they stop being cute, Scream as a series is fucking over. Everybody was so annoying about Saltburn. Is it not just enough to have an incredibly well-shot movie with a fun soundtrack and good lead performances? Is it not enough to just let them have their gay bourgeoisie mind games in peace? I think social media types really got it in their head that just because they've seen raunchier films, edgier films, that Saltburn is posing, faking, the Tumblrification of cinema. Fuck off. When Barry Keoghan fucks a grave or licks ejaculate out of a drain, I lean in with a giant smile on my face as the rest of the audience, grossed out, leans back. That's what being a cinema fan is. Just read the script, maybe. The screenplay, if you want to give it another go. You'll miss out on so much. It's a film with loads of tiny little ocular details. acting decisions, and oh my god, the camera! Richard E. Grant had me fucking howling, describing karaoke as if he's the first man to ever say the word. Gay Little Games gave me my fix that Scream 6 didn't. So I felt quite distanced from other film fans. Saltburn slaps. Just 1 year. Can we go 1 year without a Joker to dunk on? Because you guys will scapegoat anything, clearly. The Barbie movie was sat right there. Alright, should we get on to it then? Barbenheimer, the marketing event of the year. So I did it exactly how you'd expect. Dressed up in my brightest pinks, going out with the girlies to see the double feature of Oppenheimer and Barbie. In that order, of course, because Oppenheimer chronologically creates the world that Barbie inherits. I think you know me at this point. I'm not a Nolan fan. I kind of hate most of the guy's work, and him as an individual, absolutely. But from the pace to the actually witty dialogue, and the politics especially, I could not believe this was Chris. I could not believe that this was a Chris film. I stand absolutely corrected. This is the best film he's ever released. I like this, this, and this. And I was just blown away by how personal, layered, interestingly put together this film was. Just for once, there's nuance in there. Bro, the apple scene alone had me thinking for days after the cinema. What did I write when I came out of the cinema? What's my review? Oh, Free Blind Mice, Free Blind Mice, Oppenheimer's Flame. I don't know what was going on. I guess it was quite a long movie. So transformative, the edit is relentless. The music is non-stop, the whole thing does play like a trailer, yeah, I admit. This ticking time bomb, this engine that Oppenheimer can't stop. I really did think I'd come out of the experience rolling my eyes at Oppenheimer and loving Barbie, and it was the other way round. Cannot believe that the Barbie movie was more pretentious than the Nolan one. Very SNL. Probably the worst film I've seen that is still technically very, very funny, if that makes sense. You know those McDonald's adverts that use nostalgia to bring a family going through a hard time back together? Oh my god. The Venn diagram of people who thought the Barbie movie had something to say and people who get weepy over the Christmas M&S ad is a perfect circle. I joked when Barbie came out that it would be Hillary Clinton's favourite ever movie, and life just affirms itself sometimes. Good, funny, and annoying film that is also slightly evil is my synopsis. Yeah, I think I nailed it, but to get into the real nitty-gritty of what wound me up is that many people have pointed out that it is Feminism 101, which leads annoying party number 2 to say, well, what did you expect from the Barbie movie? That leads party number 3 to say, well, why were you going to the Barbie movie for your feminism lesson? The right wing are over there crying into their pillows. And I hate them all. So, when it's a raunchy camp comedy about gender roles and corporate stuff, it's cynical, it's hilarious. It's the Lego movie. But when it goes for heart, it's suddenly the most saccharine, schmaltzy, earnest brand image film in the world. This could be shown at a corporate retreat for Mattel.
You're so beautiful. I know it.
It clashes for me and makes the few bad bits feel worse than they actually are. It's a very funny, sweet movie that perfectly lets Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, the two actors of the moment, the era, do some of their best work, with two lead performances that should be celebrated, and hopefully Oscar-winning production design. But it's the tone of this pop feminism that just rubs me the wrong way. The film can't really decide if the Kens are homoerotic or painfully straight, so it plays both sides. Neither of them are a very good look, making gay jokes about beaching each other off. What are we meant to get from this, considering the plot of the movie is about men taking over, and masculinity going unchecked? Is it that straight men are secretly in the closet? That's not funny. We all agreed that stereotype was unhelpful years back. It's a weird, conflicting watch for a bisexual, cis, but deeply gender role-hating individual who has, I don't know, Michael Cera to relate to? Whatever Michael Cera thinks he represents in this movie. It's just a mess. I love the film influences, I love the British cast, even though they're pushed into the background and don't have anything funny to do other than nod their heads when an American actor is speaking.
A podcast hosted by two wise trees. We're a choir of 2,000 young fathers. Not even close.
But the creator of Barbie literally appears like a vision, like Jesus Christ at the end, to deliver the final brand moral. To state out loud what Mattel has to say about the world and what they're bringing to this new century. It really does go to show how good at this Phil Lord and Chris Miller are. Let's just take one scene alone. I hate this scene.
You've been making women feel bad about themselves since you were invented.
I think you have that the wrong way around.
You represent everything wrong with our culture. Sexualized capitalism, unrealistic physical ideals.
No.
And the girl unloads a whole manifesto of academic, very valid criticisms at the Mattel company, as if that's a bad thing.
McDonald's? Talk to the hand.
Oh, get with it, Tony. The eggs and McMuffins have been free range for over 20 years.
And the pork. It's all RSPCA assured.
Chillax, I'll get that faxed over to you ASAP. Are we still on for squash on Thursday?
We've kept up with the times. Unlike Tony.
Did you say facts?
You set the feminist movement back 50 years. You destroy girls' innate sense of worth, and you are killing the planet with your glorification of rampant consumerism. I hadn't thought about you in years, you fascist.
In that moment, the film absolutely is just Mattel tell their own side of the story. Which isn't a good base for a film. But then it does also have a fucking great joke attached.
She thinks I'm a fascist? I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce?
So yeah, that's how it is. I'm Art Major Barbie. There's nothing under the hood. The Barbie movie is the bimboification of blockbusters. No. Come on now. I'm Kenuff. We know this. Being told I didn't get it because I'm a guy, too self-serious, or an actual fascist sucked. That really sucked for me. I don't even go here. Anyway, Chris Nolan, baby!
Do you think Margaret Thatcher had girl power?
The Five Devils. I saw that in a pervy little underground theatre in Bath. I was on holiday in Bath. I had succumbed to the COVID-19 virus and I didn't know it yet. I haven't watched it back yet. I think The Five Devils was one of the greatest films of the year. Witchy, lesbian, weird time travel. It's my favourite thing again of time travel made deeply personal. A survival mystery film circling around a young girl, powers of smell so strong that she can see the past. It's so good, and I don't know how you think up a movie like this, especially when lesbianism is the main threat for the lead protagonist, which is wild. I don't think you've ever seen a movie like this. I tell you who has, though. My friend Justin, whose words on this film have inspired me throughout this project.
Okay, so The Five Devils is a movie which released last year, and I have seen it. There are as many as 5 devils in this movie, which, I don't know, that might be a new record. We should check on that. My favourite was Belphegor. I just think he did a neat little dance. It's good or bad, who can say?
Wow. Yeah, thanks for sending that in. Listen, we're quite deep into the video now, you've done a big investment. Why not just put on The Five Devils? If I could recommend any movie from this video, it'd be that one. Seriously, let's get some more eyes on this thing. Man Called Otto was the only walkouts I had this year.
For God's sake! Will somebody help me?
I was not in a playing mood. I did not want to sit through this film shit.
Okay, zoom in on his face. Okay, so what happened? We were going to...
And in this moment, I wrote into my phone, boomer garbage. When you want the Scrooge character to hurry up with it and off himself, it's time to walk out. I'm watching beloved Hollywood sweetheart Tom Hanks struggle in a noose, and I'm feeling nothing but an eye roll. How crazy is that? Yeah, I probably don't even get a comment, considering I didn't bother finishing the film, but I just wasn't gonna take it. Every single encounter with this man is relentless. Oh, damn country's got no sense. Does no one know anything anymore? It's just me? I'm the only normal one?
Get out of here. You cannot use this road without a permit.
Have a nice day, sir.
My god, it gets old, and the film is with him every single step of the way. No phones, just people living in the moment. The movie. They made a movie of that cliched sentiment. The audacity to present me a character this arrogant, this commonplace, this detestable, and then show me a flashback, an origin story of him being a dick to other people in his past. But he was young then, and he'd get hurt. Get off the stage, I don't care about your old man stand-up. Go shout at somebody else's cloud. Plan 75, on the other hand, was a film where I actively very much wanted to defend the old people, because they were being euthanized by their government. This is a Japanese film about a dystopian alternate reality where the government signs off on a new program called Plan 75. To deal with a rapidly aging population, the government will offer free incentives to sign up for euthanasia beyond the age of 75. You thought Zone of Interest is bad? Plan 75 shows us just how compatible monstrous ideas are in the current social climate. The absolute revulsion I had seeing old people question their honour, their purpose, made to feel like a drain on society for no longer being able to contribute to the workforce. You hear about how efficient Japan is, a techno-utopia, but this film shows you the cracks in between. Eugenics being a drab part of everyday life, and it got the exact rise out of me that it wanted to achieve. It's horrifying, it's so sad, and yet these conversations are had politely, quietly, with supposed dignity. That same dignity that's gonna get them marched to their early graves. It strikes me as a big lesson not to normalise things. Don't talk about unreasonable things reasonably. Don't debate callous ideas freely. Manners, respect and honour can easily be weaponised. But if that's not enough, then it becomes an admin game. This euthanasia system is more akin to a factory, and a factory led by government officials that want to cut every corner they can when it's actually put into practice. The biggest middle finger to capitalism I've seen all year, so bleak, and carried out with the polite, procedural niceties that you would only see in the real world. Disgusting film. Oh, think Children of Earth, but for OAPs.
But Sam, wasn't that the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yep, I told you this film hits different. Megan, or Mafregan if you're feeling a bit quirky. This movie just makes me think, damn, we are all really susceptible to good marketing gimmicks, aren't we? The movie's crap. It's got nothing in it. It's not as camp as it should be. It's not as funny as it should be. And there's no scares because they're going for a kiddie market. It could be a good My First Horror for the super young crowd, I guess. I think I got dragged to see this twice, all because of a 5-second snippet of a doll girl dancing. And if I shipped her with the boy, what then? Megan might canonically count as a Medabot? Maybe we will find out in a sequel. Can Reddit please stop writing all the movies, please? Hee, Cocaine Bear, fuck off. Grow up. Lots of people talking about Sydney Sweeney. Lots of people trying to force Sydney Sweeney. All I'll say is if she really was an industry plant, she wouldn't have been in Madame Web. What really won me over to her was Reality, a rare bit of cinema verite. Reality is 3 actors in a room, but it's a very, very intense and scary room. With no context, the audience doesn't know what the FBI are doing a home visit for, who our main character is, and what she's supposedly guilty of. The FBI guys, they're kind of reasonable. They're nice. But something about the use of camera is telling us that something's wrong. When the answers finally do come out, that's when you find out what kind of movie Reality has been this entire time, and why it's chosen this particular cinematic style. It's pretty clever, and not something I expected to ever see a movie on. Acting so good and so natural that it's a film about body language. A lot of people last year ranked this amongst their favourite films of the year. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I am still wondering what that snail meant. Which is a sign of a good movie that sticks with me. So I've got enough thoughts on this movie to last another 90 minutes. Unfortunately, most of them are swear words. Let's keep it short because that's all Warner Brothers deserve. I watched a lot of junk food this year. Transformers and Aquaman and Shazam. One of these has got to be a winner, right?
You can't just start.
The Flash was actively grating, has evil people in it, looks absolutely atrocious, wastes a good director. God, what was he thinking? And now what have we got? Well, we've got the answer as to why the DCU is no more. Thank fuck. It went out on a real high though. Bastards. Malicious, spiteful bastards over there at WB. Contempt for art and good taste, and most of all their audience. Love Life is simply one of the cruelest films I've ever seen. Does that sound up your street? Instead of going to the Five Doctors screening at the BFI, me and a friend joked, let's just go see a date movie. So I take poor Ben, who I don't think goes to the cinema much, to see a rom-com. I have a habit of doing this, describing very traumatizing movies as rom-coms. A young Japanese family celebrate their boy's birthday, but in a tragic second of negligence, the boy slips and drowns in the bath. You have the most unfortunate set of circumstances imaginable, and a film and a score that will rub salt in the wound at opportunity. A really callous sense of humour, but I vibed with this. Because the punishments were always, I think, fair. There is no cheating grief. No easy way to get around it. You can't just jump ship off of a family. A comedy of errors, dialed up to psychopath mode. It is for these reasons that the title is incredibly inappropriate. Love Life. Or else. Suzume! This will upset a lot of my friends, but I'm not the biggest Shinkai fan. Scene 1, you kinda seen them all. This was really captivating. Chair-kun was one of the best jokes of the year. He is my chair husbando. I think this one was more spectacle than his other works, and that's saying something because they're not the deepest. Some parts of the film are quite forgettable. I don't remember what the quest is. And that just tells me it deserves a rewatch, but the third act is super interesting. The film has its usual anime movie finale, but then it keeps going for a good half hour as some of the supporting cast get in a car and go on a road trip. Once the movie became properly unpredictable, I was engrossed. Because I didn't expect for that to happen in a Shinkai film. I guess I've got to stop underestimating the guy. Godzilla Minus One? They're teaching this lizard maths now? What a fantastic film. A good international release getting its dues. And an Oscar, you love to see it. Hey, what this team did on a relatively shoestring budget is majorly impressive, with good Japanese drama to match. Minus One knew exactly when to blast the main theme music. Oppenheimer could never. I could have hung out with those post-World War II men on that fishing boat for hours. And until they adapt the Godzilla in Hell comic, there's not going to be much topping this for a while. Formula-wise, it's kind of the perfect movie. It's Top Gun Maverick, it's Star Wars. We've got a pile of underdogs, all with one clear goal. And one big target. Use the Force, Luke. It feels great. What a great time at the movies. Got your popcorn and got your drink. With a moral that says, hey yeah guys, sorry about all the kamikaze pilots, that was pretty fucked, huh? Not the boldest, bravest statement in the world, but when you're in Minus One, it feels like it is. It feels like new information. But giant radioactive lizard as metaphor? That's the game. And it makes it a perfect, audience-pleasing companion piece to the original. To wrap up, we have the penultimate gasoline rainbow. Oh shit, these Zoomers can drive? Pack your finest skibbity toilets. Let's go on a road trip. I don't know where it's streaming, but you're gonna get it, right? Internet guy Davis told you. and you got to the end of this video, you wouldn't let Davis down, would you? Gasoline Rainbow is almost vlog-like, encountering all manner of strange subcultures, landscapes, and people. In a post-COVID world, it is blisteringly fresh. The TikTok generation have real arts in them. If we just aim them in the right direction, they're a fascinating bunch.
Things won't ever go our way. Ever. And like when people see us, they're like, oh man, they start talking and then like start calling the cops. It's annoying. And I feel like when we're in this car, we get to like be ourselves and we don't have to stay in one place.
Gasoline Rainbow depicts a group of slackers who are completely socially aware, roll with the punches, completely removed from any form of authoritarianism. Remember, these kids probably had their exams interrupted by the pandemic, and seeing them engage with the world, it made me feel like a fossil. I'm sat here like their worrying parents, thinking, no, don't go with that man, don't go down there, don't go to the party, don't get on the boats. Because I assume that every part of Midwest America is filled with, Americans. But every single person they come across is just as eccentric and nomadic as they are. It's a strange little no man's land, where the world seems like it has stopped. And for all intents and purposes, you know, post-COVID, post-apocalypse, it has. But just for a summer, and then they all have to go back to the real world. I don't think I got that experience. This film is filling in a blank spot, and being so fun and subversive doing so. It's a film about vagabonds, but it's also a summer holiday film. It's joyful. It's a perspective I haven't seen before. Think about how many movies we've all seen. I haven't seen this one yet. When I saw it in the London Film Festival, I had to be that guy at the end of the Q&A who asks their own question. I was that guy. Cringe. But I got exactly the answer I wanted to hear, which was they were on a tight schedule, but the perspective was entirely the kids on screen. They didn't decide the pace of the movie. It's not a documentary they're making, but they did decide the personality of the film, its outlook. By the sounds of it, it was never meant to be this casually optimistic, this unaware, unassuming, this lovely, really great depiction of youth from kids who probably didn't get much of one. Yeah, despite everything, I think the kids are gonna be alright. I think they're doing better than ever. And lastly, I put it as the intro. The music's been playing this whole damn video. It's Babylon. Damien Chazelle is the king. The greatest living creative the West has. You can dunk on it, and you can dunk on it. The reviews aren't nice. But everyone I've spoken to, this was a game changer for them. I can't even engage with it that critically. It's a big party. It's a giant orgy of a film and everyone's fucking invited. It's the death of an era, of an industry that united all of us in the first place. Back at the beginning of this thing, Hollywood had something really, really good going. Justin Hurwitz, I'm his biggest fan. Babylon might end up the greatest film of the decade for me. And frankly, I'm not going to hear out any opinion that's anything less than that.
You sick fucks! I'm the animal? What is this shit? What is this shit? Oh, I'm the sick one. I'm the fucking crazy one. You people make me fucking sick.
Thankfully, every person I've asked is similarly on board. Babylon is killer. 10 out of 10 perfection. The party goes on, with a final 5 minutes. So perfect, it gives La La Land and Whiplash's finales a run for their money. That is to say, it probably has my favourite ending of all time. I was in the cinema crying, just out of sheer wonder and adoration, bipping and bopping to the fucking jazz. Chazelle has me in the palm of his hand. Even beyond Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, even beyond the editing, the pitch black parallels, and the sheer fucking size of the thing, Babylon is good because it's filled with evil saxophonists. Evil, sexy saxophonists. In front of the camera and behind the camera, freaking out for 3 hours. I'm bipping, I'm bopping, I'm crying, I'm watching. These videos are huge and they get bigger and bigger every single year, and they can become quite arduous because of that. In a few hours, I know that I'll be editing this portion of the video to that whirlwind, orgasmic ending, as the colours, the components of the film itself dribble and dissipate. What can I say? That's the movies, kid. Thank you so much for watching. Next year I'll get my shit in order. Them's the movies.